Welcome to this week's episode of I Didn't Sign Up for This. I'm really excited because today we have my mom who's joining us, and I wanted to interview her for a really long time. But I feel like life kind of always just gets in the way, and then we'll get together and we'll just be talking about parenthood and like parenting and the girls, and you watch my kids a lot for me while I'm working, and we'll start having conversations or like talking about something in parenthood that's hard, and I'm like, I have to interview my mom because what she's saying is so real and honest. And obviously, I mean, you've raised 6 kids, we're all adults now, and you just have a lot of wisdom to share. And so I'm really glad that we made this work because I've wanted to do it for a long time.
Well, I hope I say something of value.
Yes, you will. Okay, so I'm going to do a little introduction of my mom, and then you can add anything else to it that you think is just kind of basic.
Okay.
But okay, so this is my mom. Her name is Terry, and she grew up in Southern California. She's a mom of 6 kids. You guys, she had 6 kids in 12 years. So we're all about 2 years apart, but there's some of us who are less than 2 years apart, and then there's a gap. I think between Steve and Tom, there's 3, and then between Tom and Jude, it's 3. Okay. Yeah. So there's like, but mostly like she was just pregnant or breastfeeding for like a good 13, 14 years total, because a year before Mike was born and then probably a year after Chris was born, you're breastfeeding. So like, I mean, hats off to you. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that for a long time.
Yeah. And I didn't put your age in there because I didn't know if you wanted me to say, but no. Okay.
I'm 67. No, I'm not. I'm 60.
Are you 68?
I am 68.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That is wild. You guys, she doesn't, if you're watching on YouTube or looking at these social clips, she does not look 68. She looks 45. You look like you could be my sister.
I was going to say that'd be pretty hard when Mike, my oldest son, is 44.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be weird.
That's a nice compliment.
Great. Okay. Anything else that you want to share about like background or anything?
Grew up in California, was born in New York, grew up in California, went to BYU, married my husband, graduated from BYU, and lived my dream of being a mom. And that's true.
Yeah. You would always say that to us growing up, that you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I wanted to ask you about that. Was that something that you always knew that you wanted to do? Because I know you went to college, you got your degree. You're a very ambitious person. You're very organized. Like you have that type of personality where people are just drawn to you. So like you could truly be like anything that you wanted to. Like I feel like you have all of those qualities. So I'm curious, was that just when you got pregnant with Mike, was it just like not even a question of like, I'm going to be at home with the kids and stay at home, and it wasn't, and that's what you wanted?
That's what I wanted. What I wanted. I had friends and family members who worked outside the home, and that was their choice. And I chose, to stay at home with, and be a mom. That's what I wanted to do. And I was fortunate enough that my husband, your dad, he worked hard. He made a good living. He was an attorney, made a great living, but also did a lot of things on the side to make sure that we had, everything that you guys would want. Have fun and,
I know. I remember, well, it's funny because now that I'm a parent myself, I think back to like my childhood and like how things really were. And I've thought a million times, like, how did they financially make it work with 6 kids and a single income? But I know that dad did a lot of odd jobs. And then I know you did a lot of things for us kids. Like you would make our dance costumes. Probably, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but did you do that to save money? Like
I did it to save money, and I also did it because I did some of the other costuming. I mean, when Tom was doing ballroom, I made costumes for, the whole team.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a group of us. We had to make many costumes, get bolts of fabric, and it was crazy. And so it was really to help financially. I also, did a lot of sewing for people, made curtains and, those type of things.
I know.
But really, we could have done everything. I mean, your dad worked at the police academy. He also did weddings on the side.
Yeah.
And so, he really worked hard.
Yeah. I know he still works hard,
He
and
does.
he just works all the time. Okay. Well, now that we got ahead of ourselves, I want to back up.
Okay.
So let's go back to the first question I ask every single guest that joins the podcast. The podcast is called I Didn't Sign Up for This. You know that. So Mom, what is one thing or two or three things that you didn't sign up for?
Okay, I'm going to give you a few as I thought about this. I didn't sign up for the sleepless nights. I mean, I had no idea, that I would have. I don't know if I have, since having babies, if I've had a good night's sleep. I think my body kind of got used to always being up. I didn't sign up for the amount of laundry, especially with my boys who were in sports. They always had dirty clothes,
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for and had no clue about the 800 or 900 parent teacher conferences I have gone to over the years. But I think the thing that is maybe most hurtful, regretful, is I didn't sign up for the collateral damage that it did to my marriage.
Wow. Yeah. That's real.
That is real.
That's real. Can we talk more about that?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
hope I'm getting emotional. Sorry.
well, she was telling me before we started recording, she kind of mentioned, and she's like, I don't want it to sound negative, or I don't want, people to listen to this and think that like specifically your kids. And as moms, we're always worried about our kids, and and you didn't want any of your children to feel like it was our fault. We know it's not our fault, and we're all adults. Krista, she's the youngest sibling. Was she 32? So we're all adults, and so it's different now that we're our brains are fully developed, and we kind of can understand the nuances and difficulties that come with a marriage, even if you don't have children. So, I think that's really brave of you to admit that. And so let's talk more about what you mean by the collateral damage that it caused to your marriage.
Well, with having, the first one, is pretty easy. You're just kind of going along. You have sleepless nights, obviously. And that was probably the biggest challenge, at that point, were just the sleepless nights, how tired you get. But then the more kids you have, and especially as they get older, they get involved in different school activities, extracurricular activities. There were times that I was literally dropping somebody off, grabbing somebody else, taking them, not even watching the game, taking somebody else to a rehearsal, taking somebody else to a ball game, running back to the first person to watch 15 minutes of the game, then taking somebody else. It was just totally in the car the whole time. So, and that didn't really bother me at all. I felt like I was very organized with that. But at the end of the day and the end of the week, I was exhausted. And at the end of the day, it's like, get through dinner, got to do the homework. And what time did I have left for my relationship with my husband? And looking back, I should have prioritized. Now, it wasn't doing all kid stuff. It was doing other things that gave me validation. It was being involved in the PTA, being involved in a youth program in our church. And all of those things took time, and I made them more of a priority than making my marriage a priority. I just always thought that, and we would go out, once a week, but it was like, we'd both go out and it's like,
fall asleep. Yeah. I hear you.
Or it was, I'm just so tired, I just want to stay home.
Yeah.
And if I could go back and change, I would not change anything I did with my kids. I love that. That was the best part of my life. It was just, I loved being a mom. But I would give up some of the other things I was involved in, to make sure that my marriage stayed strong.
That is very relatable, because we've been feeling that a lot lately, Cody and I, because we'll get to the end of the night and we're just both completely exhausted after taking the kids to school, the chaos of the morning, getting them off to school, whatever. Then you work all day trying to get all this work done. Cody has to commute downtown, so he doesn't get home until, very early as 6. Sometimes it's like 6:37. And then at that point, like, we've had dinner, me and the kids, and I pick up the kids from school, and I'm trying to like finish my work day while they're at home. And then it's like homework. We got to do Daphne's eye patch. She has her preschool online curriculum that, we're trying to be consistent with. And then, we do bath, bedtime routine. And then it's like 8:39 p.m. We're both completely exhausted and we just want to go to sleep most of the time. Or, Cody will want to be intimate. And I'm just like, I literally have nothing more to give in this. And it feels just like another thing on your to-do list. And I know in my heart and gut, like, yes, it's important to prioritize your relationship. But when you are in the thick of it and there's nothing really you can give up, it's like, what do? You said that you would give up some of the extra things that you were doing for yourself. But I mean, those things are important too.
They are, and it's hard to find a balance, but I think I would have, I didn't realize what was happening until, it was, I mean, you kind of know, it's like, oh, I'm tired, and we actually started scheduling a time that would be just for us, intimate time.
You did schedule
intimacy. And that might sound really weird.
No, I've heard it from a lot of people, and we've wondered, about that, but sometimes it doesn't feel spontaneous. And so it's like, well, but it's like, if that's all you get, well, how you get it done.
I know that when we did that, we kind of made sure that there was like this buffer zone around that time so that we weren't going from chaos to all of a sudden, okay, bing, it's time. Let's be intimate.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we had this buffer time that we would make sure that things were calm, and then we would, talk, whatever, and then be intimate.
Okay.
And
that's helpful.
I tried to spice it up a little bit, but, it's really hard when you've got a big family and you've got so much on your plate.
Yeah.
The homework.
Well, even like you said, the laundry. I can't even imagine laundry for 6 kids. Well, and then 2 adults.
Yeah.
And like you were ironing, like Dad with his work, like you were ironing his clothes and when he's in court and that, and that's a lot. I don't know how you did it.
I'd get up early in the morning. I always made breakfast for you guys. I wanted you guys to know that I loved you, and I don't know if that ever came across or not.
Yeah, it did.
But I wanted you to know, that I loved you. I tried to be involved with you, what I could, splitting my time up. But, I should have made sure I had at least that same amount of time for my husband.
Yeah. That's really good advice. I was going to ask one of the questions on the list that I sent you was, what did like an average day look like when you had all 6 kids? So maybe when Krista was a baby and then Mike was 12? So you have 12 to infant. What did the average day look like for you and how did you get all of it done?
Well, I'll tell you, when Mike was 12, so he would have been in 6th grade, that was easier than when Mike was 17. And I had high school, junior high, elementary, and preschool. And that was crazy because, I'd get up in the morning. Mike was the first one who had to be out the door to catch the bus, make breakfast. We usually had breakfast together. I always tried to have a hot breakfast. Mm-hmm. And then, he'd be off to school. And then, the next group would go, 45 minutes later. I mean, it was kind of this 45-minute routine. And so it was, sometimes I'd pack a lunch, not often. You guys did school lunches most of the time.
Yeah.
But any last minute things. And often there were last minute things. Oh no, I have a report due tomorrow. And it's like, okay, stay up all night, try and get things organized so that at 5 a.m, I can get up with that child and we can go over things or, you have all those craziness anyway. And then when Krista was in preschool, I would do laundry. And I tried to have a schedule. I do feel like I was very organized.
Yeah.
I used a planner. I lived by a planner. One time I lost my planner and it was like, oh no, I've just lost my life. I know. Luckily I found it, but the planners are great. And I would, in the evening, after everyone was in bed, I would go over the next day. I'd look at what's happening the next day. If I had any meetings with any teachers, if I had any doctor appointments, because there were always doctor appointments, dentist appointments, with you kids and with us. And then I would put that all on my calendar and then everything that I would want to accomplish that day and then I would prioritize it. I'd look at this list and say, okay, what is it that I have to get done? Yeah. And I would prioritize it in my planner. Mm-hmm. And that helped me stay focused. It worked out really well, but it was doing laundry, and then of course, 2:30, Mike's coming home from school. And I always tried to have something for them to eat. But I like the house to be clean. You guys were really great. That was one thing I think I did well, is I taught you guys how to clean.
Yeah. I think so too.
And, later on when you're a little bit older, you helped with the laundry. I think I did really well with that. And that was really helpful for me. During the period of time that I had nobody in the home is when I would do grocery shopping. If I had to do any school shopping, for you guys, like pens and paper and those type of things that you didn't need to be there. Try and get all that done. Plus some of the other things that I was involved in, the PTA. I did, oftentimes I would work in the classrooms helping.
Yeah.
Because that gave me an idea of what you guys were going through, what you were learning. And it also let me have a relationship with your teachers.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was helpful.
I don't know how you did all of that, honestly.
You kind of just fit it all in. And then that's why you're exhausted.
How many hours of sleep would you get a night, would you say?
I would say I was lucky if I got 5.
It is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I really prioritize sleep. I'm talking like at least 8 hours every single night.
You know what?
And I'm smart. Still I feel like it's not like I'm not physically exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted because of all of those to-dos and the mental load and like doing the laundry and remembering. And now that Harper's in school, it's like I'm volunteering at her class party for Halloween, and it's her birthday next week, but it's fall break. And so, I was trying to make it special for her the week before at school and like making those types of arrangements and just like all the little things that add up. And I mean, you're at my house right now, like literally every single room is just a complete disaster area. I'm trying to get through the laundry and it's like, how am I don't think I'm going to be able to get that. It's just like, it's so hard. It's so hard. And I look at you and I'm like, how is she able to like do all those things and be so involved? Because you were very involved in everything that you did, or we did as kids. You were so involved.
You know what? There are some things I think I was maybe too overboard. It's like my house has to be clean. If anyone walks in my house, it needs to be. I think I had this complex of, and maybe I was afraid of being judged. If somebody came into my house and it wasn't spotless, if my kids weren't perfectly, dressed and hair done and everything, I felt like that was a reflection on me, looking back on it. I didn't think that at the time, but, kind of analyzing my life and thinking, why was I that way? And I think that gave me validation, kind of weird. If I had this perfect little family, and I regret that.
Yeah.
I regret that.
Yeah.
I wish I would have let the laundry pile up or go or, do the necessary things, but not have this perfectionism.
Yeah. That's one thing I've had to try to learn, and I'm still learning as a mom myself, is letting go of perfectionism, because I have caught myself too, like with my kids, especially like little Daphne. She, how she is. She just knows who she is, and she wants to wear what she wants to wear. And oftentimes her clothes don't match, or sometimes she doesn't want me to even brush her hair. And even just getting her to like let me brush her hair is a struggle, but she doesn't want me to do a cute hairstyle and those types of things. But this is who she is. And like, who cares if her hair's not done? It's clean. Her clothes are clean. Like, what does it matter? But it's, as moms, like, I feel like we do feel like it's a reflection, like our kids and their success and the way that they look. Sometimes you just fall into that of like that. If they don't look a certain way or they don't behave a certain way, that means I'm a bad mom. And that's hard.
I know. And I think you do a really good job with that. I really do. I wish I would have been more like that. But it was like, okay, now these are I would label their clothes so that they could choose 2 things that had the same label, and I had multiple choices for them. But it's like, why did I spend the time to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that would be one thing that I would change about myself. If I could go back, that would be one thing.
Yeah. It seems like things were just different back then than they are now. I think we have learned a lot about parenting and maybe how things can be done differently. It does seem like the 80s and 90s were a much simpler time to parent. We were just watching a video of my brother who had a birthday, and my mom put together this slideshow, and there was just a bunch of photos of us growing up. And I was just like, I want to go back to the 90s. Like, it just seemed like we had the right values. Like, everything was family oriented. It seemed like we were all happy. Like, it just seemed like simpler times. So I wanted to ask you, what was parenting like in the 80s and 90s? Was it everything that people make it out to seem?
It was a good time to raise a family. The people in my neighborhood, we were all good friends. We all looked out for each other's kids. Kids would come over and they'd get in my fridge. And I mean, that's the way I wanted it. It's like, make yourself at home. And I mean, it was more relaxed. One of the things I really liked about when I raised you guys, there wasn't all the social media.
Yeah.
Because that's a really hard thing that you guys have to deal with. And cell phone, I mean, even computers. I mean, Mike and Steve, they grew up when the computers were just being brought into the homes. We didn't have cell phones. I mean, we had those big brick things, but the kids didn't have cell phones. Mike and Steve had pagers.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
But it was a simpler time. And it was a good time. I think it was a good time. Kids played, and so that's the one thing I don't like about this generation is just all of the social media. And it's, not that we didn't have things that kept our kids busy and occupied. I mean, we had Barney.
Yeah. Oh, man. Who could forget?
I know.
Yeah.
Barney and Sesame Street, So, I mean, we had a form of it, but it wasn't as big,
Yeah. And as addicting, I think, games and the tablets and all of that. I mean, they're created to keep your attention and keep you addicted. So you stay on the apps longer and like that type of thing. That's so interesting. I had another thought about when you said that kids would just come over to our house and like open our fridge, and they would just, kids would be over at our house. Like, I know that we would just like run down the street and like go to our neighbor's house. It doesn't really seem like parenting is like that now because of like dangers, but I also am like, are we just being too hyper aware and too hypersensitive? Where I know for myself, I'm like, I'm not really comfortable with my kids going to someone else's house. Like, who knows what's going on there? It's like this, I feel like this generation is very anxious. Like, did you ever have any type of anxiety around any of that? Like letting your kids out into the world and like kind of roaming? Because I think that was very common back then.
It was very common, although Mike was just a little boy. Mike is my oldest child.
Yeah.
And he was just probably 3 or 4 when there was a rash of child kidnappings. And there was a time that Mike, all of a sudden, I didn't know where he was. And I thought, oh, he must be down at Jeremy's. Called Jeremy's house. Nope, he's not there. Okay, well, what about Bobby's? Nope, he's not there. And then it was panic. I mean, it was truly panic. And what was really nice is my neighborhood really came together and everyone started looking. Now we found him, but it did run through my mind. No, did this man who is kidnapping, did he get my son? And it was horrible. It wasn't as, I mean, we had gone to the pageant down at Manti and all of a sudden Jude was gone.
Yeah.
Jude was like 2 and all of a sudden he's gone. We couldn't find him. And everyone around me, I think most people, and we didn't know the people around us, but everyone was trying to find him.
Yeah.
And I think the world is a different place now.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason to be a little hypersensitive about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, but I'm always just curious and kind of envious of parenting in the 80s and 90s where it just seems simpler because I know for myself, I feel like I have to constantly entertain my kids. And I have been trying to break out of that cycle recently, but I wanted to ask you about this because I never had this realization until I became a mom. But I always felt, once I became a mom, I literally felt like I had to sit on the floor and entertain Harper all day long when she was a baby. And I still have felt that way now that she's almost 7 and Daphne's 4, where it's like nonstop entertainment. Like I have to be playing Barbies with them on the floor, or I have to be play pretending or coloring or whatever it may be. And then I had a realization. I was like, wait a minute. I don't really remember my mom doing that with me. Like, and so then I think I asked you, I was like, Mom, did you do this? Like, how did you get, because you had 6 kids and you did a lot of things. You're very involved. And it's like, there's no way that she was sitting on the floor playing Barbies with me. Was that just something that parents didn't do back then? Because
you know what? I did it a little bit. I did it more with the older kids. You know, I mean, I remember
because you didn't have as many at that point,
I
so
didn't have
you have more
as
time.
many. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember doing Lego stuff with Mike and Steve, you know, building these big Lego things.
But did you do that like every day?
Probably not every day.
Because I
Probably not
lived
every
so
day.
many years of my life being like, every single day I have to sit on the floor for hours and entertain my kids.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Interesting.
And that's when Barney and Sesame Street came in, you know, and those shows were really good because they were educational,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe that was my justification, you know, and letting you guys watch those. I thought they were positive, they were educational, and I did more so with my older kids. The more kids I had, you guys entertained each other.
Yeah.
And you guys would play Barbies. I mean, I would sit down with you every once in a while. I remember having like dance parties, you know, when we were making dinner and stuff, you know, with you kids, you know, we'd go dance, you know, kind of weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't do it all the time.
Yeah. That's so interesting because, and I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but I have never, ever thought about it until I became a parent. I was never like, you know what? I don't remember my mom ever playing Barbies with me. I don't and you're a great mom and we have an amazing relationship and connection. I remember baking with you. I remember coloring at the table while you would be making dinner, but I don't ever remember you pretending with me. And I don't have any hard feelings about it. I don't have like this trauma. And I think our generation, I know a lot of moms feel this way. We feel like it is our responsibility to entertain our kids all the time. And it's just been like really eye-opening when I think about my own personal experience. And I'm like, my mom didn't do that. And she was a great mom and I have a great connection with her. So why do I need to do that with my kids? If I can't, because there's just not enough hours in the day to get it all done. Sometimes, you know, like playing Barbies isn't always like stimulating as an adult. But sometimes I do want to do that, but it's like I can't because I have all these other things that I have to do because I'm the adult and I'm the parent. I have to do the laundry. I have to cook. I have to do the shopping and the bills and all of those things. And so I've been trying to break out of like that mom guilt. Just remind myself, my mom didn't do it. She's a great mom. And I never thought about it until I had kids. And I'm like, so like, you're kind of my permission to not do that. And
there
this
you
is
go.
everyone else's permission that you don't have to do it to be a good mom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So speaking of mom guilt, did you ever experience any type of mom guilt?
All the time. I still do.
About what? When we were younger, what did you feel mom guilt about?
Oh yeah. When, you know, just not having everything done, not having it be perfect, you know, especially when they would do projects at school and you'd go to some of these projects and it was like, whoa.
The other kids' projects would be like really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys would come home and go, oh, well, so-and-so's doing a volcano. And it's like, sorry, you did planets.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
You know, and so I'd feel bad about that. And I'd feel bad that I put pressure, you know, there's weird things that I did that I regret, that I'd be upset. You know, one thing I know on the list, on the questions that you gave me was if I could change one thing, one day. And I have a lot of guilt about this. And I don't know how many times I can beat myself. It was with you, of all the kids. And you were, I think, about 3 or 4. And you had beautiful long hair. And it was always perfect.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful, flowing.
Yeah, you would always curl it.
And you had a little friend over and you guys decided to play beauty shop. And she cut all your hair off. And I'm talking cut it off.
Yeah.
Short. I mean, you had long hair like you have now. And it was about this long all the way around. And there was a big pile of hair. And I totally lost it.
Yeah.
And I remember what I said to you.
Oh.
And I regret it so much. I said, you're not going to be able to be a ballerina because you can't put your hair in a bun. I wish I could just suck that out of the universe. I mean, it's like, why not? I could have taken that hair, made it a bun, and stuck it on your head.
Yeah, I get it. I don't remember that happening. That helps. But my girls a couple years ago got into the scissors and cut each other's bangs. You know this, and I understand the rage.
This was
that you feel as a parent, and mine was only that my kids. It was just the bangs. It really wasn't that bad. So
yeah, this was
all of my hair,
all of your hair.
Oh my gosh, I would have lost it too as a parent. Like I lost it on my kids when I found out that they cut their bangs. This was 2 years ago, maybe. So I understand the rage. And I mean, speaking of rage, I feel like I have a lot of rage into my kids. And it's so hard to be a parent. It's so hard because you have this idea of like what it looks like as a parent. But there's a lot of really great, beautiful moments and things that you love, right? And then there's the times where your kids cut their hair off, or
I know,
they
and instead of
talk
saying
back to you, or
the talking back or the I hate you, I expected that. And I blew it off. It's like, no, you don't. You hate what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So that never affected me. But what affected me was that I did not show you unconditional love, that you were beautiful no matter what your hair looked like. So if I could take that back.
Well, I get it. There's been so many moments with my kids where I have just completely lost it with them too. And I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it happens a lot. It's okay. But it happens a lot. Like where you just feel like this overwhelming rage. And that was one thing I didn't understand before I became a mom, because I feel like you're a perfect mom. And I know that you're not perfect. I know you've made mistakes, but like in my eyes, like you're the Mary Poppins of motherhood. Like you're the best mom. You had a ton of kids and you were a PTA president, and you had roles in the church that we went to, and you always looked perfect, and we always looked perfect. We always had clean clothes, and my mom would curl our hair and we had these big bows, and like we always looked great. So she put a lot of effort into that. Like you put a lot of effort into that, and same with times 6, and you did all these things. And so, but we're at the end of the day, like we're all human, we're human. And I have to remind myself of that, of like, I'm sure that there were a lot of things that happened, with my mom, or the way that she was feeling that I'm just like not aware of, when you're a kid, you're just kind of oblivious. And that's probably a good thing. But I have to remind myself, like my mom probably had those moments where she was really struggling, or she lashed out, or she lost her shit, as they say, on us kids, or she probably felt annoyed with us at times, even though I never felt that as a child. I have to remind myself as an adult, like she wasn't perfect. I don't have to be perfect. Yeah. And like, I'm still doing a good job, and I'm still a good mom, even though I made this mistake. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope you don't feel guilty about it. I don't remember it. So, oh my gosh. Any other like mom guilt things that like on a regular basis, did you feel any like mom guilt? Like I had mentioned, I feel guilty when I like don't sit on the floor and play pretend with my kids, or I feel guilt that I work outside the home. Those are kind of constant things that I feel almost every single day. Yeah. Was there anything like that you kind of experience on the regular?
Not really. Not that was, earth shattering or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I always felt bad if I couldn't make everything and it was impossible to make everything. And so, I knew that I did the best that I could. And so I'd do 15 minutes here and then I'd run over here and come back, but I knew there wasn't anything I could do about that. I wish I wouldn't have been so, and of course this has kind of been the theme, so into, what will people think, It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
That's true.
Yep. I mean, Mike and Steve, I swear they always had bruises on their heads.
Yeah.
I was like, I do not abuse my kids. They are just very active. They are boys that jump off, balconies, and oh my goodness, they were crazy.
Yeah. Boys are crazy. Girls are too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mental health. What was your mental health like when you were raising kids?
You know what? I think it was pretty good. There was only one time that I thought I was going crazy, and I did think I was going crazy. It was after Steve was born. And you know, it was postpartum depression in a major way, but I didn't really know. I mean, I remember sitting there after your dad would go to work, and I remember sitting there on the floor sobbing for no reason. And I'd think, why are you crying? You have two beautiful kids. You know, they're active, they're perfect, they're normal. Why are you sitting here crying? And I would cry for hours. And it's like, what is wrong with you? But then, man, I didn't want anyone to see. So, boy, come 3 o'clock, it's like, okay, stop. You got to stop. You've got to get a grip, get a hold of yourself and put on the happy face. But inside, I was going nuts. And luckily, I had a friend who called me one day and said, hey, let's go to lunch. And so I said, okay. And she started telling me, she started describing me, but she was describing herself, what she was going through. And I said, Jill, you are telling me everything that I am. And she was telling me the treatment that she was getting, and she hooked me up with her doctor, and I went up and started doing some testing, and they did tell me they were going to put me on, I can't remember, what medication. But then I got pregnant with Tom, and they said, and the doctor said, you know what? We have a baseline on you. We've done all the testing. Sometimes pregnancy brings this on. Sometimes pregnancy will take it all away. So if you experience this again, come back. I never did after that. But I did. I thought I was going insane. I thought if anyone knows what is going on with me, I will be in a crazy house.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fearful of that. And so it's like, okay, just don't let anyone see. And Jill really kind of saved my life, my mental life, because you're not aware. I think this generation is so much better. The influential people who have come out, and said, I am suffering with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Makes it normal. And it is normal. But I didn't think it was normal. I thought it was crazy.
Yeah. I think especially like back then, so this would have been in the 80s, like mid 80s. I'm sure that the way that society viewed people who had depression or mental health issues, it was probably a lot different than it is now. And there's still stigma with it. There's still a lot of women who don't seek care for postpartum mental health issues, depression, anxiety, rage. There's a lot of different things that women experience. A lot of women don't get the health care that they need even today. So it's like, could you imagine what it was like in the mid 80s?
Yeah. You just never talked about it. As a matter of fact, I remember being in a doctor's office. I think it was probably up at the university when I was doing that testing. And it said, I mean, just the big title, PMS. They say it's in your mind. It's all in your mind, something like that. But the article said it's in your brain. It is in your brain. It is a chemical imbalance. It is not that you are going crazy. It legitimized what I was going through, and telling me that, okay, you're not crazy. This is not like a psychosomatic thing. This is real. There's a chemical imbalance in your brain. And that is, and so then all of a sudden I didn't feel like I was crazy. I felt like, okay, there's hope. And there was, and they were great up at the university, and it's a real thing. But I did. I was so afraid. Don't let anyone see. And had Jill not said, hey, and we were good friends, I wouldn't even tell her, except for she was telling me about her. And it's like, that opened the door. So I felt safe.
Yes.
I'm feeling the same thing, Jill. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Help me.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think that just like the power of just being vulnerable, just even with your friends, and just opening up and being authentic and saying like, hey, yeah, this is hard, or this is what I'm experiencing. And it really can help someone, and you may not even know it,
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful. I was going to ask you about this too. I mean, given you guys, you and dad had 6 kids, did you ever worry about financially how you would be able to support 6 kids? Was that something that you considered before pregnancy?
No.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because it's definitely on my mind on family planning. It's like, because, it's just really expensive to raise children.
It is. And, your dad had a good job. I don't think we really thought about it. I know he thought about it more. I don't remember really talking about it. Like I mentioned before, he did do extra jobs, to have extra money, and he had a good job.
Yeah.
He was making, good money, but we never had an extravagant lifestyle. I mean, we did a lot of fun vacations, but a lot of them, your dad was really good at deals.
Yeah, I know. He still is. Yeah.
Finding good deals. I mean, he came up with this idea with some friends of ours. We each bought a motorhome, and then we rented it to people, and which paid for the motorhome.
Mm.
And then we were able to use it 1 week during the year. And that worked out really well. And so we did motorhome trips. That was our family vacation.
Yeah.
And then there was another time, he always had, these ideas, Delta Airlines, it was Western Airlines back at the time. And they were doing scratch off tickets for people who flew. And most people would just throw them away. So we went out to the airport and we would buy them from people, ask if they, and we'd buy them for like $10. And we actually won a trip to Hawaii and we sold it. So we made money.
You sold the trip to Hawaii? You got it from the scratch off and then you ended up selling
it's all these ways,
like random ways
to make ends meet. And
yeah, I love that. I love hearing that because sometimes it feels like in today's society that not that you don't have to hustle. I think everyone feels like they do have to hustle, but we hear a lot about like work-life balance or family balance and self-care. There's all these buzzwords right now going around on social media. And so sometimes it's like you feel like you have to like check all these things off your list. And I was actually asking Dad about this. I was like, what did you do to take care of yourself? Like when we were young kids, like what did you do for yourself? And, everything that he said it wasn't really for himself. It was like, well, I liked fishing. So we would go up with, Uncle Gary and, we would bring you kids with us. We'd go fishing together. It seems like he and probably you too would just involve us kids in the things that you enjoyed to do. But now in today's society, I feel like self-care and like those types of things are looked at as like, no, it needs to be time away from your children. So I guess that's like a 2-part question. First is like, what did you do to take care of yourself or do things for yourself while you were raising us? And then the second, the second part is, I lost the second part. So go ahead and answer the first and it'll come back to me.
No, I don't really remember doing anything for myself. It was always things, and I enjoyed being with you guys. And, we always had a trip. That's the one thing that I wish that we would have done, was to have time alone. We didn't go away for the weekend. We didn't,
Yeah.
And I regret that.
Mm-hmm.
We were just focused on, we've got this big family and we got to take care of them and let's do a family vacation.
Yeah. Did you and Dad ever this is the second question I had. Did you and Dad ever feel like, I just want to get away from these kids? Like I need to be alone. Did you ever feel that?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. I don't know if your dad felt that way, but because I was with you guys, pretty much all day, all night,
right.
And then thinking about things in the middle of the night when, somebody's got a test and they didn't study and all of a sudden, or a big project and they let me know about it, it's like
stressing over it. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, there were times that I remember going, Calgon, take me away. There was a commercial on TV about a woman in Calgon bath oil beads or whatever. And she'd get in the tub and say, Calgon, take me away. And I'd feel that way, you know, but I never even took a bubble bath.
Yeah.
It's like,
you
just got to shower, hurry, get it done so that we can move on.
I'm surprised you didn't suffer from any mental health issues. That's like not meant to be rude or insulting.
No.
But it's like, it's just, sometimes you just feel like, gosh, and it's just like why are parents so different today than they were? I just wonder that all the time. Why are parents today so different than they were back in your generation? Because I feel like sometimes I'm about to have like a mental breakdown, and I only have 2 kids. I don't have nearly as much on my plate as you and Dad. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it on these kids.
But you know what?
Like I can't get only 5 hours of sleep. And it's just all these things. I'm like, am I just like too sensitive? Is like there's something wrong with parents today where we're not strong enough mentally to handle parenthood, or what is it?
I think you have more on your plate. I mean, you're working full time. I wasn't, even though I was doing things that filled my time. It wasn't, it's just different. It's different when you're working. And I realized that after I had to go to work full time after, the divorce, and I had to go to work full time, and it was like, yikes. I had no idea what this is like, I started looking at money differently.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want this? Okay, I'm going to have to work for 6 hours in order to buy this. Do I really want it that bad?
Yeah.
I started looking at things that way. And I regret not being more sensitive about that. I don't think we were ever, just not thinking about money. We always kind of had it there. We always had a budget.
Yeah.
We worked well with a budget. I think we saw things financially the same. But you have a lot more on your plate. Our roles were more defined in my generation. Moms stayed at home, took care of the home, took care of the kids. Dads went to work, brought home all the money. I mean, it was pretty well defined that way, and it's not anymore. I mean, I don't know. There's probably some people out there that are living that kind of a life, but not many.
Yeah.
The people that I know, the young adults like you, who have young kids, everyone's working.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really great point, and I think that the water is definitely muddied where there's not clearly defined roles between when you do have two working parents, because then it's like, yeah, okay, who does the laundry, who does the cooking, who does the cleaning? It can't be the woman because she's also working full time, and that's working basically two full-time jobs.
Right.
But I don't feel like men have really been raised, and this is a generalization. I know that there's like definitely outliers, but I think for the most part, men were not raised to care for the home or to do laundry or to meal plan and make dinners and those types of things. And so that has been like kind of a struggle. And Cody's great. We've come a long way, but it definitely takes more to kind of define like who's doing what versus like, oh, this is what the woman does and this is what the man does. This is how it's always been for generations and generations. Right. And now we're really the first generation, I feel like, where we're trying to figure out what that looks like. And it's really hard. And yeah, you make a good point. Like a lot of women don't even have a choice. Like a lot of women do want to have a career. And there's some women that maybe they have to work, financially they have to work in order to live, whether they're a single mom or they need two incomes in order to pay their bills because living is so expensive now. So a lot of people don't have the choice now either. I know I didn't include this on the questions, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about being a single mom because I do have a community of women that started following me when Cody and I got divorced. So my mom and dad got divorced after over 20 years of being married, and almost 23. And so then she became a single mom. I'm just giving like background, but the custody arrangement that they had, I mean, you had us most of the time. We went with dad every other weekend, and that was very typical 30 years ago. Yes. And where in today's age, I feel like 50-50 is more typical. But back then that was very typical. And it worked too, because you were a stay-at-home mom. And I know now that like working schedules just don't align with school schedules. And so it's really hard to like drop off and pick up kids and work a full-time job. And so it just worked. But I wanted to ask you about, being a single mom. Maybe just what advice would you give to someone who is a single mom and maybe is struggling or trying to find her footing and find her way? Do you have any advice for them? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. I was just a thought I had.
No. Well, and I was lucky when I first started going to work. I got a job with the school. I was the school librarian.
I know. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And so my schedule was more the schedule that you guys were on.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't in your school, but our schedules were pretty compatible. I got the same days off and everything. It's hard. And it's hard being a single mom and working. And at that time, I wasn't working full time. I was only working, part time. Let things go. I would say, let things go. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you have stuff all over your kitchen table. as long as you kind of move it aside so you can put a dish there and have dinner together. I would say make sure to, dinner time, meal time, I think is really important. I think it's time that, even if it's only a half hour, you're there, you can talk, you can laugh. I know that was a time when you guys, would be in the kitchen when I would be making food, and we'd go dancing around. We'd pretend like we were driving cars and being weird. And but hug and kiss your kids, because they won't let you do that the rest of their lives.
I know, I think about that all the time.
I know, because that's the most important thing. And I don't know if I don't know if you guys think, yeah, our house was a mess when you were single, Mom.
I don't remember that.
I mean, I had stuff. I seemed to always be doing some kind of project, and and I wouldn't clean it up. I mean, it's like, oh, leave it out. I don't care. I don't have time. That's when I could choose. I can just leave it out, not worry about it. Don't worry about the dust.
That's good advice. And I don't remember our house like being messy or cluttered or anything like that, like growing up. I don't remember that. What I do remember though from you as a single mom is just you made me feel like as a woman, I was empowered to do things that typically a man would do. Like I remember you would be mowing the lawn or like fixing the sprinklers. Like those are things that Dad would do when you guys were married. And I remember every year you'd go out and we'd have broken sprinklers, and you would just always make the best out of it. And you taught me that you don't need a man. You don't need someone to do, like, you can figure it out. And it's hard. And we have to go to Home Depot 5 times because we realize we don't have the part we need. And this was even before like really the internet was like super accessible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was there, but it's not like you just pull it out on your phone. You're like, let me YouTube this really quick and see how to do it. Like you really had to figure it out. And so, but it's like you just had a way of like problem solving and taking care of things and getting things done. And I remember just seeing that as a kid and being like, I can do that too. And I feel like when Cody and I, went through our separation and divorce, I had the confidence that like I could figure it out, with things that he would normally do. I can call you came over one time and helped me with my disposal. I'm like, I'm not going to call my dad. I'm going to call my mom because I know she's going to, and you fixed it. So you modeled that to me, that like you can do anything you set your mind to, and you can be a strong, independent woman. And this is how you do it. And I mean, I feel like that stuck with me. So.
And I hope you remember the fun times when we would go out and we'd have broken sprinklers, and you guys would have like the garbage can lid, and you'd be
no, I remember, and trying to cover the water so that you wouldn't get totally sprayed.
And it was fun.
You just made the best out of bad situations all the time.
That was fun.
Yeah, you're just a positive person. Anyone who knows you, you're just a positive person, just happy, positive, even despite like really hard things that are happening. And I really admire that from you.
I have one other suggestion for people.
Yes, please share.
Whether you're single or not, but it was fun doing it single. It was fun for me, and I think you guys had fun. We always had a puzzle up.
Yeah.
And we would sit around the puzzle, and we'd have music playing in the back, kind of softly, but we'd talk, and then a new song would come on, and I'd say, okay, get up and dance. We'd dance around the table, and I'd stop, and we'd have to sit down and do a little bit more on the puzzle.
Oh, yeah, I do remember the puzzles.
We did so many puzzles.
I know. There's a lot of really great memories. I can't wait till my girls. We do puzzles now, but not like the ones we did. Oh, yeah. And so when they're a little bit older, we'll have to do something like that because they'll love it. So, well, thanks so much, Mom. I think that's all of my questions. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and I don't even know how long it's been, but I know it's been a long time.
You can cut a lot of it out.
No. And I feel like I could just keep talking and talking and talking because I know that you have just a wealth of knowledge. And so you'll have to come back on the podcast sometime. I appreciate you being here. And thanks everyone for listening. And please don't forget to rate and review the podcast. It helps me so much. I love reading the reviews when they come in, and we will chat next week. Thanks.